Welcome to Kizuna, a Teijin Innovation Vodcast. Like the Japanese word Kizuna, which means enduring bonds between people, we believe in the power of bringing people together when it comes to developing the newest technologies of the future. My name is Franziska. I'm an innovation advisor and your host of this podcast. And in today's episode, we talk about innovating in Formula E, and we have a very special guest, Mike Lugg, who is the technical director of the Envision racing team at Formula E. But before we talk about it, let's look at it.
Very brave and very through. And it's France. France gets through by 100. He will start on the front two rows of the grid for the Envision team. Down the straight.
Good timing there. Thanks, guys.
I don't know about you, but I'm super excited to dive deep into the topic. With me again, I have Jay Latta, the emerging technology strategist and futurist. Jay, how are you today, and what comes to your mind when you see this footage?
Well, hello, and thank you for having me again in your podcast. What comes into my mind? Of course, fascination. Racing is always something that where you are fan of a competing team when things are getting a bit emotional. Not emotional from the pure, if it's beauty and so on, but it's really this pure power. What is so fascinating on Formula E is you have to be balanced. You have to be as well mindful when it comes into resources. You cannot just refuel the thing. You have to recharge it. So the overall science behind as well materials is very important. The tires, the structures and so on. So here we have a very, very important career to explore electric mobility itself.
And we have a very important guest today, Mike Lugg, technical director, as I said before. Mike, warm welcome to Kizuna. How are you today? And could you introduce yourself a little bit?
Hi, how are you? I'm good, thanks. Thank you for having me. My name is Mike Lugg. I'm the technical director at Envision Racing Formula E team.
Nice. And what can you tell us a little bit about your role? I mean, you're a technical director, but what does a technical director really do at Envision Racing Formula E?
So my job is to look after all the engineering side, the technical side of the race team. So working with all the engineers, guiding them, giving direction, and all the challenges that come from competition like Formula E racing.
Yeah. And what is your personal interest when it comes to Formula E? Why did you join that team?
I've always been very interested in competition and competing. I love that. Love that environment, the pressure, and I love motorsport. Is what I've always done. But then in doing something in Formula E, there's also another side to it, which is promoting, looking after the planet. So that's something that's very important as well.
Yeah, I'm super excited to know more. And this episode calls Innovating in Formula E. So what I really would like to know is how does innovating in Formula E really work? How is it organized? How do you as a team operate?
So being a competition, the way we can do better than the opposition is by continually pushing technology and coming up with new innovations. And through competition, it breeds or creates solutions to problems that perhaps would take longer if there wasn't that competitive edge to it.
Yeah. Jay, what do you think? Like, what are the trends when it comes to innovating in this field? What do you observe as, more like the, external person, what do you see when it comes to innovating at Formula E?
Well, how Mike already said, it's this speed. You need to stay at the edge. You need to be a slightly better. I mean, every kind of racing sport is regulated. You have rules. You have the times like in the 1970s when simply it was a driver and then put in a huge fast thing into it. These are over. So we have a highly regulated environment where then smaller tweaks are maybe the one that leads to success. I see here two major trends. The first one is, of course, having this kind of technical accelerator on 4 wheels. Maybe we will see as well 6 wheels sooner or later. So here we can explore new, let's say, new tweaks and new materials, like, for example, in tires, which is very important for electric vehicles. On the other hand, I see as well a new kind of how to attract people, the audience, when it goes as well a little bit into gamification, when it goes into how the audience can interact with the team, can interact with the driver, maybe observing him a little bit more. These are completely new formats. So here we have, of course, this one stream attraction from the observing. It is as well from the racing team, the transparency. What are we doing? How, of course, not revealing the secret source, of course not, Mike. But it's really the attend or the fans can be closer. They can be much closer to the team, to their fan and their racing area. While on the tech level, it's really fascinating because more or less it's the stuff that we are using in our EVs, more or less. It's standardized, it is described, and all of these findings, far more than from the opposite racing areas, more of these findings are going into how we will see electric vehicles in the future.
Mike, what do you think as the expert now? What can other industries learn from Formula E and how you innovate?
I guess one of the things to pick up on those previous points, the difference with Formula E compared to some other sports or other motorsport is taking the solution to where there's the problem. So there's lots of pollution in cities, so that's where we go and race, and it makes it very accessible to the public, people that maybe weren't expecting to see it. It's right in front of them. They can see that there is a solution, a way forward to solve some of the problems. And then as well, touching on the regulation side, Formula E has quite a few regulations and things that are not road relevant. They're the same for everyone, and the areas of development is really focused on the things that can be transferred into the more open market to everyday road vehicles.
And how has the technology evolved over time? Do you have maybe some examples, as the technical director, what have you observed?
It's continually changing. So this is the 9th season of Formula E. When we started 9 years ago, the batteries were smaller, they had less capacity. So we actually had 2 cars for each driver. So halfway through the race, they would stop and move to another car. But things have progressed now. The battery can hold more energy. We're more efficient in how we use it. So the drivetrain of the cars is able to go faster using less energy. There's lots of continual developments, I guess, every year, every week, pushing for more efficient ways to move a car around the track as fastly as possible for the least amount of energy.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on the batteries, and I guess sustainability plays a huge role in this field. Do you have any examples here, also maybe when it comes to materials, how to recycle them and how do you use materials in particular?
Yeah, so that's the recycling aspect is very important in Formula E. So the whole ecosystem, I guess, is always focused on things like that. But then also the advancement in technologies where we can make them stronger, lighter. If they're lighter, it takes less energy to move them around. And also new techniques like 3D printing and things like this, where you can make more complex, smaller, lighter, intricate shapes.
Maybe, Jay, you can share some examples when it comes to sustainable technologies in Formula E, but maybe also elsewhere. Do you have anything where the audience, you can see how we can make technologies more sustainable?
Well, we have here in this, there is as well a little bit more money in Formula E, in any kind of racing sports, due to sponsors, due to partnerships and so on. So here it's really this kind of field where we can experiment a little bit more. Mike already mentioned 3D printing. 3D printing is, when it comes into combination with new materials and so on, it's some kind of this red line through all of these episodes of our podcast. So here, of course, 3D printing, especially when you are using generative design, when you are using bionic design, when the sustainability, it starts already while you are building these. There is simply far less trash that stays when you are producing these vehicles or this kind of technology. So we are from the beginning on a bit more mindful, especially now in racing, where the weight, the balance, the power ratio needs to be slightly different than if you put an EV just onto the road. When all of these presets are more standardized, when you exactly know, you don't take your vacation luggage into a Formula E, right? If the driver knows exactly how much he weighs. So there are simply not these uncertainty parameters like in a bigger car with 4, 5, 6, 8 seats to fill, when you have a far broader uncertainties to move them around. Here it's defined, you know how much the driver might weigh, plus minus. You don't have this additional luggage with you, baggage and so on. So you can focus really on make it as optimal as possible. With new materials, when we see, for example, experiments, it depends as well on the regulation, when you could improve the aerodynamics with metamaterials, with small printed in structures. Again, tires. Tires are so important when we have this ground-based mobility. In a combustion engine, you simply accelerate a bit more and then it simply turns. While with a battery electric vehicle, you have to be mindful. So the range changes how you drive. It changes, of course, with the weight. Here we have some kind of preset. So the tires, the mixture of the tires is far more critical than on any other area, because it defines as well how far can you go. Can it stand the acceleration? An electric vehicle accelerates slightly different than any other vehicle. It simply starts from the first moment on to be in the optimal torque. So here, of course, this is as well some kind of hardcore testing area for materials, for electric motors, for the battery itself. So here we see simply how these materials, how the manufacturing process are going hand in hand, and more or less these findings, maybe a new mixture for tires, maybe a new kind of paint or surface structure that might go back into the mass production of electric vehicles. One thing that for me is important or is as well noticeable in Formula E is the track can be different. It's not just being outside because of the emissions. You can drive with Formula E as well indoor. So part of the track can be placed inside of closed areas. So having here the freedom to define completely new tracks, you do not need to copy the old world. You can define it completely different. And this is something as well from the sustainability perspective, when it's then under more controlled area. You can clean the floor different, you can prepare it and so on. When it's indoors, while outdoors you still have these fine dust emissions and so on, you simply cannot live without these. So here, indoor racing, partly indoor racing, is as well something that is very interesting, because you can put all of this into a completely different experience.
Yeah, talking about experience, Mike, what are your thoughts on this, what Jay just said?
Yeah, completely agree. And our last race this season will be in London, where just under half or maybe a third of the circuit is inside. And that's a completely new experience. It's more like being at a concert or a theatre or something, with these cars driving around at high speeds inside. And that's only achievable with a car that has zero emissions.
Could you talk a little bit about the mission Race Against Climate Change to the audience? What is really behind this when it comes to Formula E?
Yeah, so that's something that Envision Racing run in parallel to the on-track racing. And it's a way of bringing different people together, different experts together, and sharing that message of trying to stop climate change and the things that we can do to help improve the planet.
And why is it so important? I mean, we have this at Kizuna all the time, It's about, the different expertises. What really, speaks to you when it comes to the different expertises to, overcome climate change or find solutions? Why is it so important to have different perspectives from your perspective?
I think it's obviously something that's incredibly important. Everyone wants the planet to be in a better place when they leave than when they arrived, in a way. And it's an area that we're experienced in, the electrification of cars, e-mobility. So that's the primary area, I guess, where we push and try to get the message out that there are solutions, there are things that we can do to help improve the climate change situation.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about artificial intelligence and data management in Formula E. Do you maybe have any examples for us, where you use artificial intelligence or how you use it and data management? Can't give away too many secrets, I guess, but everything that we do is to improve efficiency and find an optimal solution. So given time restraints and the amount of data that we try to process by using methods like AI, we can narrow down on a solution, get an advantage over competitors, and ultimately, find a better solution much faster than other people. Yeah. Jay, what are your thoughts on artificial intelligence and racing?
So let's strip it down or make it a bit more general. Mobility. From our regular street cars, connected cars since 2012, we are connecting vehicles and collecting data, of course. In the automotive, the latest generation of vehicles, something around 25 gigabyte per hour is being generated and processed. So out of this, only a small amount of data can be transferred. Of course, in racing, where you have these control conditions, you transfer far more data. It's not just 25 gigabyte per hour. So the focus is slightly different. So in mobility, in our everyday mobility, this kind of data is being used to learn about the average of driver. It's being used to learn how, let's say, a specific fleet of vehicles is attracting what kind of people, how they are using these vehicles. AI helps here to find the right patterns. It might be sometimes a little bit scary to see what kind of data is being collected. When I've seen this the first time, it looked like Europe by night, but these small lights were moving. While in racing, you have here far more use cases. It's in fact something like a digital twin on 4 wheels. When you have this vehicle, and you can, with artificial intelligence and this vast amount of data, when you can have predictive maintenance, when the algorithms can even tell you when does need something to be replaced. In the past times, without these possibilities, we simply had our cycles. So change this after this and that. Or you had an extremely good engineer that simply heard when something was wrong. With this amount of data, what we are having here, we can trigger, for example, or set up thresholds. Hey, tell me when this and that happens. Or these algorithms can simply tell you, hey, slow down a bit, then it will cool down, then you can accelerate in the next round. So this how to analyze the vehicle, the battery consumption, the moving parts that we have in these vehicles, plus as well the driver's behavior. This is a very complex choreography of data that is being collected, put into of course the racing management, and of course on some level then played back. So it's constant interaction between the management team and the driver. And it's fascinating.
Yeah. Mike, what challenges do you see when it comes to AI? I mean, it doesn't have to be like a problem, but what challenges are there, especially when you think about the future, or like what opportunities are there when you think about Formula E and artificial intelligence?
Yeah. So one of the things that is a big factor in Formula E is that digital twin, that virtual world. So because we're quite limited, we've only got one day as a race weekend to do the race and find the solution. We process a huge amount of information leading up to that event. So we run offline simulations, and we can try 1,000 different options, I guess, and then narrow it down to what's the better solution. And also, one thing that's a big part of what we do is the driver in the loop simulation. So collecting data from the environment that we're going through scans, and then model a virtual world. The driver can then, on our simulator back at our workshop, go through and experience lots of things in the environment that we think we're about to attend, and then cover off a whole range of different options that we can then explore further when we get to the racetrack. So that allows us to crunch more data and find a better solution much quicker.
Yeah. Let's look at the Formula E two-seater vehicle concept. When I heard first about it, it really blew my mind. So it's actually, there are two people in the car, basically. Mike, maybe you can tell a little bit about it while we look at the pictures.
Yeah, so in parallel to what we're doing in Formula E racing, we've designed and made this two-seater electric car, which allows us to show off the technology and the performance that's possible with an electric vehicle to a greater number of people. So we can do track days where, as you should be able to see from the pictures, we have a driver in the front of the car, and then sat immediately behind them is a passenger. And they can experience for themselves what an electric vehicle can do and how they can perform.
I think, Jay, you want to experience this, right? You want to sit there.
Oh, of course, for sure.
Yeah. What are what is the role of materials when it comes to this specific vehicle? Where do you use advanced materials, and why is 10x carbon fiber used?
Yeah, it's a perfect opportunity to test out and show off these advanced materials. Carbon fiber is something that's incredibly strong. It's incredibly light. So therefore, it means you can move that car around for using less energy. And it's also possible, I guess, to make quite intricate shapes. Like you see, it's a nice rounded aerodynamic shape, that car. So it's very, very valuable to advanced technologies and in the materials world.
Yeah, that looks really, really cool. Jay, do you want to add something?
Well, of course, carbon fiber is a high-end material. It's lighter than steel or than steel alloys. It's you can put it into several forms. It depends as well on the manufacturing itself. If you print it, if you just use the conventional layering method, depending on if you embed it into some kind of other materials with longer or shorter strings. So it's quite fascinating to see how it can help us to build lighter vehicles that are as crash safe. And crash safety is, of course, even in racing, very important. So here, this high-end material that costs, of course, a little bit more, but you need less. So the process, in my opinion, building a Formula an electric vehicle in steel, or in aluminium might be possible. It would just not be that efficient. This is as well one of the findings in a regular ground-based mobility. When you use in these high-performance vehicles more carbon fiber or reinforced with carbon fiber, reinforced materials, simply to get this effect of lightweighted design, of crash safety, simply to get something that fits the next future.
Yeah. Mike, what do you think, like when it comes to safety and newest trends and technology? Is there anything that you can share with us when it comes to Formula E?
Yeah, that's obviously something that's incredibly important. Keep the driver safe, keep other people around the track safe. So the Formula, the FIA, are continually pushing on improved safety, and that could be things like the material used for the drivers' suits, have them lighter, have them give better protection for things like fires, and also making the car itself lighter and more strength and safety cell parts and parts that are designed to absorb energy when there's a crash or an incident like that.
Yeah. When you think about the future at 2050, what excites you most, or how do you see Formula E in 2050?
I think the exciting thing about that is not knowing what the future will be, but knowing that it's technology is so rapidly improving every year. It's an exponential change. So to look as far ahead as that, there'll be massive differences, I guess, in lots of things we do. So it's exciting to imagine what's at the moment unthinkable, but will very quickly become reality.
And on a very personal level, when you think about technology and innovation in general, where do you see yourself in 2050? Are you in a flying car, or what's your imagination? Where do you want to be?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing already from cars, so electric cars, the move to more automation. So they're taking the driver out of having to do work, and they can multitask and do another task sat in the back of the car. But also I guess then that allows less wastage in. At the moment, not everyone, but a lot of people have a car parked on the street or parked in their driveway. We have multi-story car parks and big car parks everywhere. If cars in a short period of time are all autonomous, then these things can turn into gardens or other spaces. And cars will never need to park. They just drive and pick up the next passenger. So there's, lots of things are possible and unlocked by this technology advancement in cars.
Yeah, I agree. Jay, how do you draw this picture, 2050, Formula E, innovation, cars, technology? What is your imagination?
So honestly, with this new format of racing series, we could do far more. It means we could design completely new tracks that are fun, like in a video game, when the audience could see this from the perspective, maybe even, let's say, help the driver, their favorite driver, to accelerate by giving him bonus points, by maybe even slowing down the opponents. We'll see, like in a Mario Kart, you could design tracks with, if the regulation would allow it, and with the aerodynamic presets like stronger pressure and so on, we could design even, let's say, tracks with loopings, or some kind of driving up, being pressed on the wall and then driving back again. So I see this interaction by 2050, maybe even some kind of multimodal way. So means you've mentioned air car. I do not really like this term because these are no cars that are in the air. So these flying devices that could be part in one huge race, where you have a pilot, like in when you are giving the stick to the other runners. So simply having the pilot in the car while a drone follows him. It can be a manned drone. It can be as well some kind of whatever drone to support him and so on. Maybe even autonomous vehicles that are like your wingman guiding you. So here, huge masses, like these multiplayer games and so on, where this racing is right now even not we cannot continue thinking about how this might evolve. The current racing series, it's very complex to get a license. You need to start quite early and so on. I mean, in my age, if I would start racing, I simply do not see the ideal line. While starting at the age of, let's say 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever, the earlier you start, the more you get a completely different experience for this balance of for how to drive. So here, of course, this series is of course limited because there are not so many drivers. But enriching this with synthetic personas, enriching this with advanced air mobility, doing completely new tracks. I mean, I could even imagine having something like a huge slot car race where you do not need a battery. It will take the energy out of the ground. Then you could do really some kind of things like in a game where you have to pass this virtual bubble simply to accelerate, and then you take this energy away, and the following car does not get the same kind of energy. So here, so many possibilities till 2050, where we really can be curious, where we can explore these formats. And I would say it's up to us what we do with it.
Yeah, it's up to us, to the humans. Mike, it was a pleasure having you here. Thank you so much for being here. And if you want to reach out to us, the audience, you can do this on the Future Navigation platform. I'm really much looking forward to see you in the next episode, and I wish you a good day, evening, or morning, wherever you are. Thank you so much for being here.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.